Good afternoon. This is Andy coming to you live from Orange County, California. And I'm a little bit sad because normally my kids are somewhere around, and when these intros play, they come over here and dance. And it feels like, oh, I don't have my kids today. All right. So I needed to come on today, and that's why I have a hat on. And for those of you that aren't on my podcast, which is only an audio podcast, you can go to any one of the major podcasting platforms, whether it's Apple Podcast or iHeartRadio, Spotify, and just do a search, put Andy Falco in there. Andy, you're going to get first the guy who plays the guitar. He's fantastic, by the way. His name's Andy Falco. But you have the other three podcasts that I have currently on all those platforms. You can subscribe to all of them. That would be great. I would appreciate it if you would. But if you're watching visually, I'm wearing a hat. I don't always wear a hat on these broadcasts, but I was out for my bike ride and I did some other stuff. I had a couple conference calls, and I had to get on the mic because while I was riding around the park, I saw why it is important to pick the right trainer for you and your dog. Now, this is going to sound like I'm promoting myself or one of my trainers, Gina or Aldo or Falco Canine Orange County, and some of the other team members that are over there, because we are all fantastic. But not just that. You may not be in the Orange County area, Southern California. Although I have gotten customers send me dogs. I had a customer who was in France. They flew their dog here to me and had to go pick up the dog up at LAX. That's happened a couple times with different dogs. People fly their dogs to us from other countries and other states. You can do that too. But this is just for anybody. Just to have you have some of this knowledge. I haven't done one of these shows in a long time. I used to do them every so often, just to remind people when you're out there looking for a dog trainer, what it is you need to look for, and some of the things you need to keep in mind and understand about the dog world. And I'm going to say some things that may make people feel uncomfortable, and I'm sorry. This also causes me grief from time to time, because I've been attacked by other dog trainers. You have no idea. It is pardon the pun, a dog eat dog world in the dog training world. The only two things, only thing two dog trainers can agree on is the other one sucks. And that's just the way that it is in our world. Now, that's not unlike many other industries and, environments of competition, but it really is bad in the dog training world because, and I'm going to share this first. There is no governing body I still can say this, I think, in the world for dog trainers. There's not one organization like in the United States. There's not like a bar association for dog trainers. There's not, what else could there be? Like a real estate, there's not an organization that licenses real estate, like they do with real estate for dog trainers. Every dog trainer is independent. There's not necessarily even a university that you can go to. Now, there's dog training companies that train dog trainers, but it's, again, for that discipline or that type of system that they have. At Falco Canine Academy, my system was developed out of my being a police canine handler with the city of Anaheim. And what I learned while I was a police dog handler and then a trainer for police officers throughout the United States, North America, and then eventually the world, that I learned, kind of the opposite direction from most dog trainers. Most people learn, as children, get their dog to sit, and then they read a couple books, and they follow certain people as, now I can't think of anybody's name. I only worry about myself. They follow like the Dunbar, right? I think that's his name, Dr. Dunbar. I can't remember all the dog trainers' names that were out there. And I should remember some of the famous dog trainers, and I've worked with them and I've met them and I know them. And the books on dog training that I have are all the way over there, and I can't see any of the thing. Even, say for instance, Cesar Millan, all of his books and that kind of stuff. Cesar and I worked together on a couple TV shows, and one that we did together called Love My Pitbull. And so people follow these trainers and they become a variation of that trainer in many ways. Or if they really get, to a point where they can actually work alongside those trainers, they'll be an extension of that trainer. And then they kind of veer off and begin to do their own thing. For me, I became a product of all the police dog trainers that I either worked alongside with or that I learned from, and took a little bit of each one of these dog trainers, Billy Knott and Bob Wright and Steve White out of Washington, Who else was out there? Mark Ficcadenti. All these different, they all had something, right, that I picked and said, I like that. I don't like that much. I like that, right? And I took these little pieces and then I created Falco Canine Academy. At some point, there were some things I came up with that blew them away. After a while, I remember as part of the International Police Canine Conference, where I was one of the instructors and became the lead instructor of problem solving. Problem solving is the best place to learn, by the way, as an instructor, because people would throw problems at me and I would have to come up with solutions. Not always was I successful. I have to call somebody, hey, Bob, come over here. I don't know. I've never seen this before. Do you have any ideas? And so that was really great for me. I would, if I didn't know, I was able to reach out to Mark or Bob or Bill and say, hey, can you guys come over here? We got this problem. I've never been confronted with it. And I would be able to watch them. And then, like I said, at some point, there was a few things that I did, and they go, where did you learn that? I go, I don't know. It just came out of my head. And it could have been stolen accidentally. It could have been something I saw somewhere. I don't know. There are certain things that I came up with. They go, wow, that was a couple of times. I mean, they were very complimentary on the solution that I came up with. And they go, I've never seen that before. And it's so powerful. I'm going to begin using it. And so these things can happen over years and years of doing this. I've been training dogs for about 30 years. So bringing the system I had the advantage of having dogs that were doing some very high-end stuff, biting people, right? Chasing them down, train high-end, energetic dogs that were biting, very aggressive dogs that sometimes were out of control, biting their handlers, biting the spouse of the handlers at home, or the children wouldn't let go of bad guys, right? So that's where I learned. That's where I started. And then I later on became a pet dog trainer. Where people do the other way around is they learn from, getting a dog to sit, and then they try to learn more complicated and more difficult things up to aggressive dogs and that kind of stuff. I started with aggressive dogs and worked down. How do you get a dog to not pee on the carpet? That was the very last thing I learned how to do, as opposed to the other way around. And so that happened to benefit me, I think, and put me in front of, the hardest people to train are cops. Don't let anybody fool you about, okay. Cops are difficult to train, just so you know. My last name being Jimenez, going into the middle of the South, at 24, 25 years of age, being an instructor, this International Police Canine Conference, talking to guys that have been police officers for 15, 20 years. I'd been a cop at the time, maybe 6 years. And there I am teaching them how to use their police dogs. They have chew in their mouth. Yeah. What are you going to teach me? And they're like spitting into their water bottle. What are you going to teach me? Right. And so I had to learn how to teach human beings. And I had to take their dog that was out of control and then get this person who was also maybe out of control and their dog out of control, and then somehow make them controllable. And so very high-end stuff. I'm only telling you this because I had the advantage of being put in a really difficult position really early on and having to figure it all out as time goes on. All right. So now getting to the point of the thing. So the good news is I learned that I had to have a lot of variations on how to do stuff. Because you had different dogs and different human beings that I was dealing with all the time. And so for me, developing my pet dog training business, I was able to bring into it. I know how to use an electronic collar. I know how to use a pinch collar. I knew how to use a choke chain. I knew how to use a flat collar. I knew how to use treats to motivate a dog, toys to motivate a dog. And so I had all the variations of all the different tools. The other way around, and again, this is the reason why I went through that whole diatribe just early on, is that from pet dog trainers, sometimes people get stuck in one thing, right? They become either what they want to try to call a purely positive. There really is no such thing as purely positive, just so you know, a form of training dogs. Now, people argue with me and say that there is, and I'm going to tell you that in my 30 years of doing this and researching it and trying to replicate a purely positive training regimen, there's no such thing when it comes to a dog. And so you have your food, your treat and reward trainers, like your click and treat, like they click, give the dog a treat, click, give the dog a treat, right? That kind of person, that's fine. But that's really their very narrow form of training is in this click and treat area. Then you have people that use a flat collar and a leash, and they give like some type of correction or something like that. And then that becomes their way of training. Then you have people that go to the pinch collars and electronic collars, and those became their sole ways of training. Electronic collars, there's a company called Sit Mean Sit. They're all over the country, I think, maybe even in some other countries, and they only use an electronic collar. And so you can see where this can kind of become a problem, that you may have a dog that has such an issue that the click and treat really isn't going to address that dog's issue, perhaps, and maybe it will, but maybe it won't with the person that you're trying to teach, the human you're trying to teach. And so understanding, as you're a dog trainer, that you cannot always think that you are going to teach the owner of a dog to become a dog trainer, even the trainer for their own dog. And so that is where Falco Canine Academy tends to be a little bit different, is hopefully what I've tried to do with my instructors is help them understand that you have to find a way to solve the problem or give the human the tools that will allow them to be successful that you yourself may not use. Sounds odd, doesn't it? Right? Because me, having been a police canine trainer for a very long time, training dogs for 30 years and doing television shows and writing books and doing experiments, that kind of stuff, I maybe have the skill level and the tendency to use certain things because of who I am and what it is that I know. And my timing is a lot better because I've been doing it for a very long time with hundreds, if not thousands of dogs over the last 30 years. Right. And so my skill level or my ability to do it is going to be simply different than Mary Jones, who is a school teacher. Excuse me. Mary Jones, who is a school teacher who has 3 of her own kids and a dog that is out of control, doing whatever. And there's no way I'm gonna pretend or even think that I can teach her how to be a 30-year dog trainer and use a skill that I happen to find very useful. I have to find what is it going to make Mary Jones successful in her very busy life, and she has no interest in being a dog trainer. How do I get her dog to stop attacking 2 or 3 of the children and hurting them, or the next door neighbor dog and nearly killing it? How is it that I'm going to get Mary Jones to do what it takes to keep that dog in the home, not have the dog be euthanized, or not have to give up the dog and have it adopted out? What is it that Mary Jones, I need to do as a handler, as a trainer to teach Mary Jones to make that dog a good family member within that home? And so that may not be what I would use. That may not even necessarily be the thing that I prefer. I may need to find something for her. I'm going to give you an example of how this kind of works with something that happened to me in my career as a canine handler, and then also having a business as a dog trainer at the very same time. And so as a police dog handler, my department, Anaheim Police Department at the time, with the chief of police, who's now passed away, unfortunately, great guy, by the way, but he just made this one decision that wasn't very good for us as canine handlers. There was an idea that police dogs are out of control. And so LAPD, where he kind of had a history, he was with Anaheim Police Department, but he knew a bunch of people at LAPD, and LAPD at the time was considered, well, if LAPD is doing it, then everybody else to do it, which was a bunch of BS. Sorry if there's anybody from LAPD watching, but if LAPD was doing it, other police departments would start to do it, and sometimes we go, well, but we're not LAPD. Like, it's kind of crazy. So LAPD's canines, all their dogs are on electronic collars. Back in that day, there was no way of changing the level of the electronics on the transmitter, right? The collar being the receiver, in your hand is the transmitter. You push the button and it causes the collar to send electrical charge into the dog's neck, which tells the dog he's doing something wrong or right. Yes, strangely enough, it can go either way. And so at that time, the power levels was adjusted by different colored pins that were on the collar. So red would be like super strong, like, oh, it would hurt, like it would hurt a human. And then you'd go down, like then you'd have orange, I think, and then blue, and then yellow, and then green or something. I'm not sure of the exact order of the colors anymore. It's been a long time. But so if you were doing bite work where a dog was biting a decoy on the equipment, and your dog wasn't coming off the bite, you would often, this isn't correct, but I'm telling you what we did back in the day, you'd make sure the red pins are on that collar, because you have to break through the dog's desire to bite and vanquish his opponent. And so you'd have to use the red ones in order to get the dog's attention and get him to let go. In other words, causing so much pain in that dog's neck and body with the electronic current that was going through it, that the dog would be forced to let go. I know this all sounds bad, but this is the way things were done back then. All right. But then you wouldn't want to use the red pins on the collar if you're doing obedience, because the excitement level and the distraction level of the dog was way lower, right? You were just simply trying to walk from point A to point B and have your dog walk at a heel and sit when you stopped. And so you don't want the red pins, because the red pins are for when the dog is in, in fight mode and biting, and the pain tolerance and the energy and the all the other things that are in play are high. But in obedience, everything is low. And so you would want to make sure and be, say, for instance, if blue was the lowest level, you'd want maybe the blue or the green pins that are in there, colored in there. That would be that the power is less. It's greatly reduced, where you can almost barely feel it. So what happened was handlers would get lazy and they would just keep the red ones in. They figure a Malinois and a German Shepherd that's a police dog, they can handle the red all the time, which is completely wrong. All right, so this is a very long story, but I'm trying to get to the point where what happened was it began to ruin dogs. Dogs are being ruined all over the place because handlers are lazy. They're using the red pins because they're stupid. And now dogs were not engaging. They weren't biting. And now our chief of police ordered us, all of us at Anaheim Police Department, we were training our dogs well. Our dogs let go and we told them to let go. But because there was this story going around in the Herald Examiner or the LA Times that police dogs are out of control, he ordered every dog in Anaheim to have an electronic collar on. I just never charged mine. Mine never actually ever worked. But other guys were putting them on and they're shocking their dogs. Rah, rah, and the dogs are, screaming. And now the dogs don't want to bite. They don't want to leave the handler. There's all kinds of weirdness going on. It was really bad. So I swore off electronic collars. I said, electronic collars are evil. They're the worst tool on the planet. You can never, I will never use one. You will never catch me using an electronic collar ever again. That was my mindset, right? It was one of the few times in my life that I said never. I don't often say never or always, because at some point you're gonna regret that you said never always. And that was one of those times. I'm never using an elect collar for the rest of my life. All right, fast forward. I'm maybe a couple years. I have my business, Falco Canine Academy. I'm training dogs. I get asked to go. I get calls to go to this lady. She has not multiple sclerosis. Maybe it is MS. I think she had MS actually, if I'm not mistaken. She could walk but barely walk, and she would often have to rest because she just had very little movement, and you can tell she was really young too. I think she was in her late 20s, very young, and it was unfortunate. But she had a dog, a golden retriever, that it would get excited and it would jump on her, and now it became an issue because the dog knew if he just jumped on her enough, she would eventually fall to the ground, and now he would lick her in the face, and it would become this really crazy thing. She would try to fight the dog off, but the dog was so busy looking in her face and enjoying the kind of the fight, right? The being pushed around, it would enhance the dog's desire to lick her in the face, and it became a bigger and bigger issue. So she called me in a panic because I don't know what to do with this dog. She goes, I love this dog. I love this dog. He's so good, but every so often he knocks me down and he drives me crazy. So remember, I said that. You have to have all these different tools. The only one tool I wasn't willing to use, because I said I would never use it, as electronic collar. So I go to her house and I'm looking and I'm trying to figure out how can I help her, because she has very little use of her hands. Her hands are kind of disjointed. I don't know what the word is. Where she could push a button, right, for her wheelchair, but she couldn't hardly do it. She couldn't pick up stuff like this. To pick up this would be very hard for her to pick up, but she could use a finger to operate her electric chair. So sorry, her wheelchair, not her electric chair. I'm not talking about electronic collar. I've never made that mistake before. So sorry. Stop laughing at me. She was using her wheelchair. Sorry, and she could do that. And so as I'm trying to come, she can't use a leash, and a pinch collar wouldn't work. A choke chain wouldn't work. Click and treat, which it would be too slow because she's trying to maneuver to use the click, and so I'm sitting there just going, and I'm trying to figure. I can't. This is going to be hard. I could train the dog to stop jumping on her, but as soon as I leave the house, what would the dog do? The dog would start jumping on her. When I was there, I trained the dog not to jump on her. I was there. And so she goes, could you just stay here? And And I go, no, I got a family I got to go home to. I can't stay there. But so I trained the dog to not jump on her, but only when I wasn't there. As soon as I would leave, the dog would start jumping on her. So I go, oh, now I got to give her. Now, do you see where I'm coming? I'm finally bringing this around. The very long story to get to this point. Do you see the importance of understanding as a dog trainer that you need, and you need to find one if you are looking for a dog trainer out there that's watching this video, you need a dog trainer that will help you with your problem in a way that you can solve the problem or maintain the good behavior that you're looking for, or extinguish the negative behavior that you don't want anymore. That the trainer coming into your home has to be to such a have a skill level to understand that they have to help you with your problem, right? It does no good, and it did this lady no good. I forget her name, but it did her no good that I could teach the dog not to jump on her. Well, I was there, right? But as soon as I leave, now the dog jumps on her, knocks her down. Do you see the problem in that? Especially in this case where she could not even come close to replicating what I was doing. Everything I was doing was using a leash and a collar. Or the food. I can't remember which one I was using, but I was using one of the two because I was trying to make it as simple as possible. But I had the skill level to keep the dog from jumping on her, but she didn't. And when I left, it was like I'd never been there at all. The dog continued to do what it was. So as I was driving home, leaving her house one day, gosh, what am I going to do? It hit me. It hit me. I had to use the dreaded e-collar, electronic collar. There was no other choice because she could push a button. And that's what we ended up using. By then, thank God, we could change the stimulus, the level of the stimulus, the level of the electronic shock from high to low on the transmitter finally at this point. So I don't know how many years after I decided I was never going to use one. It had to be 5 or 6 years. But here I go, ordered an electric. I said, listen, I'm going to try something. And I explained it to her what we're going to do. And the electronic collar came. I learned how to use it. I learned from the Dobbs. Dobbs are fantastic electronic. I don't know if I doubt if they're still alive because they were old when I learned under them how to use electronic collar. They were like really old then. And that was 20, 30 years ago. But the Dobbs were amazing. I spent a lot of time with the Dobbs. They were amazing dog trainers with electronic collars. They were spectacular. And they did it well. I don't know any other trainers since then besides myself that knows how to use electronic like they do. I'm sure there's other people out there. I'm sure they taught other people. I just don't see it, right? And so I was able to take that skill level that I learned from the Dobbs, apply it to the new fangled electronic collar, because now you can control it on the transmitter, and change this woman's life with her dog. She was able to keep the dog. She loved the dog. The dog stopped jumping on her. And I used the very thing I said I would never use. And since then, I found that actually the electronic collar, when used properly, can actually be the most humane tool that you can use. I know, sounds very strange, especially when you start getting around people that think it's the most evil thing on the planet, like I used to feel. I'm telling you, I swore it off. I hated it. However, now I know different. I know that there is a tool that may not be something that I use, but that I could teach somebody else. So, in answering the question, the importance of picking the right dog trainer is that you need to find a dog trainer that understands that you need to be the person that you know that's watching this that needs a dog trainer. You need to find a dog trainer that knows how to help you be successful with your dog when you are not really interested in becoming a professional dog trainer. That you simply want to know, how is it that I can do what I need to do with this dog to get the dog to stop running out the door and chasing, whatever, a cat, a squirrel, a kid on a skateboard, or how can I get my dog to stop urinating on the carpet in the house, or how can I get my dog? I want to know how I can do it. I don't want to know how you can do it, trainer. I want to know that you can teach me how to do it in a way that I can also work, take care of my kids, that I don't have to be walking around necessarily. And this is one way of doing it. And I'm telling you that it actually can work, that maybe you don't want to have a pouch on your side that has food in it all the time, right? That may be a solution. And you may be willing to do it, and it may be good for you, but that's you. But maybe the next person goes, I don't want to walk around with a pouch on my belt all day long. I can't remember to do that. I got to cook. I got other things to do. I need to know how I can solve the problem. Do you see where I'm getting at? That you need to have a conversation with the trainer. Do you have several different ways that do you know a pinch collar, choke chain, flat collar, click and treat, electronic collar? Do you have all these skill levels so that when you come into my home, you can help me find what works for me and what works best for me. And hopefully the answer will be yes. And you're going to find other people say, no, we only use electronic collar. Well, I'm not sure that that's exactly what I'm looking for. It may be the tool, right? The electronic collar may be the tool that works for you, but I want to make sure that maybe we have a variation or something else we can do if that doesn't work for me. Do you have any skill level for something else? And so that may be a conversation that you have with somebody during your interview to find the right dog trainer, find out what their history is, referrals from other people and that kind of stuff. And you want to be able to have that conversation with somebody. If they're not willing to, which you will find dog trainers that aren't willing to have that conversation with you, then you need to just make the next phone call and find out and find somebody else that can do it. I want to warn you that there's many dog trainers that only select a certain type of customer that works within whatever their skill level is. Right. And so you're going to have, and they'll ask you much questions. Well, is your dog aggressive? Yeah, he's been okay. Then we can't help you. Right? There's a lot of dog trainers that won't take an aggressive dog. That's actually good. If you need to be honest with them. And so this is kind of the other point. You need to also be honest with your dog trainer that you are talking to, that you tell them that your dog bit you or that your dog bit somebody else. You gotta tell them, because there's many dog trainers that don't know how to handle that, and they will actually make that problem worse. The reason this all came up today, and I'm going to share with you what happened with me today while I was on my bike ride, is that I was riding my bike through the park, and there was a dog trainer working with a woman and her dog. The woman was very slight. I think she was probably maybe 5 foot, if maybe shorter than 5 foot, very slight and very small, a very small woman with a dog about a medium-sized German Shepherd mix that, probably weighed about 30 pounds, 40 pounds, something like that. So not a big dog, but a dog for her, it was kind of like proportionate and appropriate. The trainer was a very tall man, about 6 foot, I would say, and fairly muscular. And so, I don't know how long the lady had been with the dog. I don't know anything other than what I saw. And what I saw was the trainer with the dog I can tell that there was instruction being given. Again, I've been in this business a really long time. I can tell you that I'm confident that I know that this person was a dog trainer and that was his customer, just by everything I saw. And I don't want to go too far, because it was in Orange County and I'm broadcasting out of Orange County, and there's a chance that this trainer may be listening. I have a lot of dog trainers that watch this stuff. So just in case. And so here's a dog. As I'm driving by, I can immediately see, again, being in this business for a really long time, I see a dog that's in trouble, mentally in trouble, based on the body language. The ears are kind of rolled back. The body language is like, oh, I'm scared. And nothing's happening yet. Nothing's happening as I'm approaching. I can see it as I'm approaching. And again, this is maybe a total of 10 or 15 seconds that I'm observing this. I've been doing this for a very long time. So anyway, he's sitting here with the dog on leash. The dog is like very nervous, concerned, scared, frightened type of position. You have possibly, again, a dog that's used to being around a woman who's only about 4 foot, 11 at the most, who's very slight, probably very soft spoken. She looked like she might have been in her 50s or 60s or something like that. And just a dainty little woman, now in the hands of a very tall man with a lot of muscle. And so that could have been enough. I don't know what happened previously, but the dog is not in a position to be corrected. As I'm now beginning to pass by, I see the trainer give a two-handed correction. To a dog that is soft, you might as well have hit that dog over the head with a brick, because now the dog just kind of laid over on its side and didn't know how to respond. And then he's like telling the lady something. And in that moment, there was a realization that dog was in the wrong hands, and that lady was in the wrong hands with the wrong trainer. The dog was doing nothing wrong. He was telling the dog to sit, and I could tell that he was trying to get the dog to simply go on to sit. The dog was not jumping on him. The dog wasn't attacking him. The dog wasn't growling. I was close enough to be able to hear a growl. The dog was doing nothing but standing there. And at that moment, the body position of being scared, the dog was then giving more pressure on top of being scared and given a correction, which now caused the dog to go to complete submission. There's nothing to be learned between scared and submission for a dog. No matter what it is you're really trying to train. right? Because if the dog is not attacking you, what good is there to put the dog into submission? Now, I put some dogs into submission, but they were getting ready to eat me or eat somebody else, right? And I will definitely put a dog in submission, but not when a dog is already cowering. Do you put a dog into submission? There's no benefit. I don't know what it is that you would be trying to teach, right? There's nothing that I know of. And again, I rarely use always and never. And this is one of those cases where I don't know of anything. I cannot think of any reason to take a dog from cowering to submission when the dog is doing nothing. Right? The dog wasn't making eye contact with the ducks going by. The dog wasn't alerting on me as I was going by. The dog was simply sitting there looking up at the trainer, waiting for something, some direction. He said, sit, and he gave the dog a correction. And now the dog didn't do the sit. The dog wasn't in a position to do sit. The last thing the dog was thinking is that I need to go into some obedience position. There's no direction. There was no help. And so I'm driving this home because it's super important that, and I want you to see this in your mind's eye. If you are a potential customer, seeing your dog being put into a position of going from being a cowering dog into a total position of submission and giving you the knowledge that maybe he's in the hands of the wrong trainer. Maybe I need to make a change. And you can say, okay, once you go ahead and give me the leash back, and we'll just end for the day, and then, dismiss the trainer and look for somebody else. Training should not be a battle of who necessarily submits when you're talking about obedience. There is different things that, you need to look at. If we're talking about aggression, a dog is trying to attack me and trying to bite me. I've had dogs on me that won't let go. I've had injury. I've been in the hospital a couple of times because of dogs, usually police dogs, not pet dogs necessarily, but police dogs that suddenly have decided that they want to kill me. And they've been on me. I mean, one jumped over a dog house to get me. He got me on the arm. And I was sitting there in the kennel over here, just right here, right in the backyard. And the Malinois was just shaking my arm. And I go, okay, you bastard. Grabbed him by the testicles and lifted him up by the testicles to get him off my arm. And then we became friends after that. After that, we were totally fine. He just needed to bite me that one time, and I needed to grab him by the testicles to get him off. And then after that, we had a complete understanding. I didn't submit. I didn't give up. I stayed strong. And then I finished that job, and then I drove myself immediately to the emergency room to get the stitches that I needed to stop the bleeding. But the dog and I had a complete understanding. So that is different, right? Does that not sound different than a dog who you are trying to teach obedience? Obedience, strangely as this may sound, should be out of motivation. You should want the dog to give you obedience. You should want the dog to desire to give you obedience, not obedience through submission necessarily. Now, again, I'm not using never and always with this. In most cases, listen to me. I sound like my pastor. Listen, in most cases, when you want a dog to give you obedience, the goal should be for you to get the dog to want to give you obedience. Is the dog wanting to give you obedience if you have a dog that's already cowering and now you add pressure to try to get the dog to now get into obedience position, like a sit or a down or a stay? No, the dog's only doing it because now he thinks he's going to die, right? And again, I've been around trainers. And I'm going to share with you some of my just a second. Some of my experiences is that the belief with some trainers is that your dog needs to think that it's going to die if it doesn't obey you. I can't tell you how many times I've been told that by other trainers in the police world, not necessarily in the pet world. I'm trying to think if everybody in the pet world have ever said that. I don't think anybody in the pet world that I can think of. Nobody's come into mind, but mostly in the police dog area of dog trainers. They feel very strongly that the dog must think that he will die if he doesn't obey you. I originally I was taught that way, and I thought that myself, and kind of believed it for a short period of time. But then I changed my mind. In obedience, and again, I'm not talking about addressing aggression. Let's take aggression out of the discussion because that's a completely different animal. In obedience for a pet dog, you want the dog to give you obedience out of a desire and want to give you obedience. It could be masked in the beginning that the dog's doing it for the want and need of a treat. But in the end, what you want to accomplish is the transfer that desire and that want to you. as the human. I quite often compare, and I've done this for years, even when I was agnostic. And so I don't want you to think this is a religious discussion, but I often use the Christian religion as the basis sometimes for dog training, that you want your dog to look at you as not necessarily a God. I just want to kind of, want you to understand. I want your dog to look at you as that everything comes through you. That the dog's looking at you like I realize that everything comes through you, and I respect you and I love you. There's a sense of fear, not in the fear of you may kill me, the fear like Christians feel about God. We love God. And now being a Christian, I can tell you this part of it is that I love God and I want to do as much as I possibly can in my human body and my human soul to please God. But we often call that the fear of God. All right. So there's this fear, but it is because I love God. There's this fear because I want to respect God. There's this fear because I want to please God. I'm not fearful in the sense that I'm afraid he's going to punch me in the face, although he could, or strike me down with lightning, as some people say, right? It's the opposite, right? We want God to, we want to show God respect and love and obedience because we love him. And so when we're looking at a dog, in the end, as a dog trainer and the customer, the dog trainer's job is to help you have a relationship with your dog where your dog loves and respects you like the Christian loves and respects God. Does that all make sense? And so at some point, although there's going to be some pressure from time to time, a leash correction or something like that, that what you're trying to get and communicate to the dog is that there's a possibility that if you don't sit in a timely manner, you may get a correction, but when you do it right, it's going to be amazing. Right. So in some cases, at some point, you may have to tell a dog that he's doing something wrong with some pressure, right? Just like what happens with the Christian religion, that there's, hey, you made the wrong decision. You made the wrong decision. And so, that's the reason bad things happen. All right. But if you make the right decision consistently, good things happen. And look I love you and I respect you and I respect you for respecting me. I love you enough to give you what it is you want. I thank you for your obedience. You can now be free to walk through the house. Thank you for your obedience. Now I will allow you to sit on the couch. I will allow you to come onto the bed. If you begin to disobey me and show lack of respect, you can no longer be on the couch and no longer can be in the bed. As a matter of fact, you can't be free. I'm going to put you in a timeout somewhere. And so you want to change the dog's perspective as the trainer, and you as the pet dog owner. You want a trainer that's going to give you the power to teach your dog to love and respect you, and want to do it out of motivation. That was a really long discussion, and I hope it made sense, and I hope I didn't bore you to tears in bringing this up with you. But that is the kind of trainer that you're looking for. A trainer that gives you the power to have a better relationship with your dog, not a worse relationship. Do you think that trainer that I just described to you that I saw today, do you think that trainer's helping the relationship between the human that owns the dog and the dog? Absolutely not. If he's passing on that technique and that the look, like this is what your dog's supposed to look like. The dog looks supposed to look like he's cowering, and then he's supposed to really piss himself, or she's supposed to piss himself when he does something wrong. Is that helping or hurting the relationship? It's hurting the relationship. I'm just going to tell you, I've seen hundreds and hundreds and thousands of dogs and really bad situations. And I've had some really tough, discussions with humans. I've called them into my office. I used to have an office there on different places here in Orange County. And I would have to say, okay, leave the dog in the car or put the dog in the kennel. I need you to come in the office. This is about you. This is no longer about your dog. Remember, our tagline for Falco Canine Academy is human training for your dog, because it's really not very often about the dog. My job is to help you with your relationship with your dog. Human training so that you have a better relationship with your dog. And so you need to find that kind of trainer that understands that you, as the human, need to have the training that builds a relationship between you and your dog that you will love having, that you will love to spend time with your dog, that you will love to take your dog out of the backyard and take him for a walk, that you will love to take your dog out of the home, out into the real world where people can see you and go, wow, you have a great relationship with your dog. How do you get your dog to sit and stay like that? How do you get your dog to walk at a heel? How come your dog doesn't try to attack my dog? Or how come your dog doesn't smell me in the crotch like the other dog that just passed by me? Right? You want to be able to walk down that people say, wow, where'd you get your dog trained? Falco Canine Academy. All right. I want that too. And so you want to find a trainer, and I hope this is all. I'm not all over the place. I feel like I'm all over the place, but you have these. So so you have to have this understanding that you have to find a trainer. I lost my place for a second and skipped. I think I might have had a stroke just now. But you want to find a trainer that helps you with your relationship, not hurt your relationship. All right. Again, when we're talking about aggression, again, we may be talking about, now you're going to see your dog in submission. You're going to see your dog yelp, maybe, because that is different. If your dog is bolting out into and I'm going to get hit by a car, you may see a very strong correction, because like a child, I will make my children cry if I see them run out into the street in front of a car. I can pretty much tell you that I apply the same principles to my children rearing. I have 5 children that I do with a dog. That there's certain things that there's a huge consequence, and you may cry if you do that. If you continuously run out into the street and nearly get hit by a car, you will cry as a child of mine. It will happen. And that's the way it is. Same with a dog. If I have a dog that continually just bolts, bam, and goes out, he's probably, something's going to happen that's probably going to cause that dog to go beep and go, that really hurt. I'm not going to do that again. Because what's the consequence? What's the alternative to running out into a car and being hurt by a correction or the human or not? It usually is death, right? And so the consequence to that thing, crying, is actually much better than death, right? Getting run over by a car. And same thing with a child. When you have aggression, where the dog is biting or attacking or trying to kill, and you can have, actually, there's some dogs you can save and train. There may be a time where you need to put that dog into submission and cause a little bit of discomfort or a lot of discomfort to that dog to get them to stop. Those are 2 different things. All right. So I hope I made that very clear. And having a toolbox of tools is what you're going to be looking for. So just to wrap this up, I just want to make sure that I hope I didn't go down too many tangents, and I hope it all made sense. But you want to find a trainer that has a lot of tools in the toolbox. Long lines, a pinch collar, a choke chain, a flat collar, a clicker, hot dogs, chicken nuggets, whatever it is, right? A lot of different tools. So you want that. You then also want a trainer that is going to help your relationship and say, what in the end, trainer, what is it that I want to know what your philosophy is. Is it just simply the dog stops doing stuff, or, or what else? Is there, in the end, is my dog going to have a certain outcome? What is the outcome? And I'm only hesitating for you to straight outwardly ask, but you kind of want to hear what the answer is going to be, right? If you don't want to lead the witness. You don't want to lead the witness. Are you going to teach me to have a better relationship with my dog? Oh, yeah, you'll have a much better relationship. Do you see what I'm saying? So you want to say, so what's the outcome? In the end, what are you hoping to? And you want to hear what they have to say. If they say, well, we just want the dog to be obedient, and that's it. You may be on the right track. You may not be on the right track. But if somebody says, my real goal is that your dog is even happier with you, and now has an obedience and a lifestyle with you, and is being obedient to because he wants to please you. That is my outcome for you. And if they say that, then pretty much you're probably on the right track. They could be lying, but again, if they're not going to come up with that necessarily unless that's really their goal, I don't think. And so you want to be able to tell them or ask them the questions that will help you understand what type of trainer they are. What's the outcome? What are we looking for? Well, we just want the dog to be obedient, no matter what it takes. Okay, what else? How do you? And then maybe you can follow up and say, well, what's the relationship between my dog and I going to be? Well, the dog's going to look at you like you're the boss. You're the alpha. Oh, I hate that. And I'm so sorry. I know there's a couple dog trainers on here watching. I really hate that aspect. That's one thing that, Caesar, I think, has been known for. That he goes, you got to be the alpha. I don't like that. I like the God, Jesus, and follower method of training, that because alpha, it can be misconstrued. It is that the dog is now submissive, in the sense submissive, like, okay, I'll be obedient, just don't kick my ass, right? That's kind of where I see it. And I only because I've been around cops for a long time, and they go, you got to be the alpha to your dog. You got to be the dominator of your dog. Your dog must do it, or else he's gonna. If he doesn't, he thinks he's gonna die. That's all I've heard. That I cannot tell you how many times. Does it work? Yes, it works. Yes, I'm going to tell you that it works. But is it a good relationship? Right? I know lots of police dogs that are out there that are totally submissive to their handlers and totally feel like that if they don't do it, they're going to die. And their dogs perform. Their dogs go out and bite, and the dog lets go, and then kind of comes and slinks back, and then kind of sits next to them and leans away. Right? You can see that in the bottle. If you ever go to one of these police canine demonstrations that I developed, by the way, some years ago, and you see a dog come back and then kind of go like this to their handler, you can pretty much guess that that's the kind of relationship they have. That the dog comes back only because he thinks he's going to die. Now, again, does that work? Yes. Does it accomplish the end goal to get the dog to let go and come back? Yes. But the relationship is harmed. You also only get dogs that will do it based on that kind of relationship, based on what kind of collar they have. If that were to break off or not be working, then I'm going to tell you that you'll have a dog that's not that obedient. And you've seen this. Some of you that are trainers and some of you that maybe have had experiences before, you'll say, well, my dog only does it when he has the pinch collar on. My dog only does that when he has the electronic collar on. Well, why? The answer is because the dog knows that with that collar on, he may die because of the collar being on, right? The dog's not doing it out of the relationship between you and him or her, right? The dog's doing it with the relationship he has with the collar. The dog does it because of the collar, not because of the relationship of the human being the dog is with. So the goal always is to get the dog to do it because the dog respects and loves the human being, not the dog does it because of what kind of collar they're wearing. And again, does it accomplish it? Yes, because now the person goes, well, I must always have this collar on because if I don't have it on, then he won't do it or she won't do it, right? Well, okay, does that work for you? Yeah, okay, because it works. But then my question is, what happens if you don't have the collar on? What? Right? Do you see the problem? The problem is, well, then the dog gets out and bites somebody. Okay. That's because the dog doesn't have the collar on. All right. Does that make sense? All right. I hope that all made sense. Again, I feel like I kind of went all over the place there, and I hope that I addressed the title. If I didn't, let me know and I'll come back and do it again. And so I hopefully laid that all out, the importance of picking the right handler or a right trainer. Really, it's super important. That in the end, what you want is that relationship to be strong between you and your dog. All right, my friends. All right, Amy, thanks for being on. I appreciate you. Didn't have to use you as a producer today on this, or not today, not on this particular broadcast. Dogs are awesome. Oops, wrong one. Dogs are awesome. Yes. Oh, look at that picture of that dog. That kind of looks like the dog that very maybe lighter color. The dog at the park today was a little bit of a lighter color than that dog. Nobby, what Nobby had to say? Keep the dog, get rid of Mary. Mary Jones. I don't even know. Yeah. I think you're the best dog trainer. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate you very much. You teach respect and care, not negative responses. You know that, and again, I just got to give the compliment back because it's true. Every time I see Chris, he puts a video up of his dog certifying or doing something. The dog my heart just breaks out of goodness. I don't mean it in a bad way. It's just like, gosh, that relationship is so dang good. Chris and his dog are the perfect team. And quite often I'd say this all the time. I've trained some really good dogs from time to time, because I spend time selecting the right dog first. I have a lot of tests. I take days and days to select the dog to make sure that it will work just about with anybody. But even then, I can have some really great dogs, and then about halfway through the training with the handler, I go, "Oh, I'm sorry, dog. Sorry. I'm sorry you're with that person, but they bought you and they have you, they own you." And but not Chris. Chris was like, and his dog, I just like, wow, that dog's so lucky. That dog's so lucky to have Chris as a handler, and they just have it. They got it together. There's dogs I've taken. Here's one last story. Just one last story, just because I don't even know if it's related. But I took over the training for a police department, and when I first took it over, I was coming in because I had to fix a bunch of problems. All the dogs were kind of out of control. They were biting people. They weren't letting go. Talking about patrol dogs, police dogs that are trained to bite people, and some of the dogs were trained to find narcotics. And one of the dogs was a mess. It was on 7 different This is a true story. The dog was on 7 different medications. And I can't even tell you, like for heart, like heart murmur or something like that, for hot spots, for licking its feet. I mean, the dog had all kinds of like just these medical problems, and it was, I mean, it was a large number. Like it was like 5 or 6 medications. It was way too many. And I go, how many medications? And it had like, digestion problems, and just like shenanigans. They were changing foods, and it was a mess. The dog would scream when you would give the announcement, please come out or send the police dog, as it's getting ready to go inside. This really high-pitched scream. And it was like, it would make your ears bleed. It was horrible. And the handler's trying to yell over the dog, yelling. And it was just this mess. And I worked with a handler for, I don't know, 3-4 months or something like that. And finally, I heard that the handler was doing stuff with me that he wasn't doing at home, and vice versa, that he was doing stuff at home that he wasn't doing when I was present. With me, he was being super nice to the dog, but I was told that at home, he was training the dog very poorly. And so and there was no improvement between the dog. The dog was a mess, not biting. The dog was not engaging and that kind of stuff. And so I finally went to the sergeant lieutenant and says, I don't know. I think we need to change handlers. And he goes, well, I'm glad you said that, because there's other reasons why we think he needs to be out of the canine unit. And for whatever reason, they removed him from the canine unit. That dog went to somebody else. I worked with that new handler from scratch with that dog. It wasn't long before the dog was off all the medication. The dog's tail began to wag. And I'm not sure in the first 4 months I saw that dog, I ever saw the dog's tail wag. The dog's tail was wagging. The dog was engaging. The dog was biting and letting go. The dog was finding narcotics where it wasn't finding narcotics before, and it was a narcotics trained detection dog. The dog was finding narcotics off all the medication. The dog stopped screaming at the announcement to go inside the building, and it was a completely different dog. People would say, hey, did you get a different dog for this other? I'm not going to say the handler's name, but did you get a different dog for that handler? Because even the dog looked different, but it was the same dog. The dog walked around differently. The dog stood up upright. The dog wasn't like, all hunched over. And I changed the human. The only thing I changed was the human, and of course the method of training and the understanding that the handler had, that it's about the relationship, right? The first handler and the same dog, broken relationship. Handler with the new dog with the new handler, a good relationship, created a different dog, a different outcome. Why? Because the relationship was strong. The dog wanted to please the handler. The dog had total obedience. The dog would bite. The dog would handler say, here. The dog would release and let go and come right down back to the other side. Why? Because he loved the handler and he respected the handler. So these are things that I can tell. I can keep telling you story after story after story, that it is about the relationship. Understand this. The relationship is the most important. You need to find a trainer that helps you build your relationship with your dog. All right. Hopefully in the end, with all the stories and shenanigans I told you, that's the outcome that you get out of this, or that's the benefit from watching this video. Hopefully you get a benefit. It's like 4 a.m. here with when you started. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. I'll stop talking. Nobby's in Australia, by the way. Hey, you guys were on fire not too long ago. We are now on fire. California is on fire and just completely burning up here. I did a live earlier, and it's just like this snow, but it's ashes from all the fires that are surrounding our area here. All right, my friends, I hope this again, and I know I said this like 5 times because I feel like I'm completely wonked this Facebook Live. Let me know if I did, and I'll redo it, but hopefully there was a good outcome of this video. All right, my friends, thank you for everybody joining, and even those of you that are talking to each other. It's fun to have you guys communicating and saying hi to one another. All right, those of you on the podcast, not a lot of visual on this, so you didn't miss much other than I'm wearing a hat. All right, my friends, I will talk to you later. Take care, and goodbye.